Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about how there's some signs where the receivers and and Sam Howell are getting on the so-called same page. Not just that the connections they're having, but why some of the adjustments they're making in the middle of a play that really kind of starts to show you a different level of cohesion. Talked to Terry McLaurin about this, Curtis Samuel a little bit. So there are a couple of plays from the Falcons game where I talk about, I'm going to play some of that interview for you after my keys and predictions from Terry McLaurin. So stay tuned for that. Just some good insight by Terry. There always is, but I thought you'd enjoy that. And it's just another sign of where it's the kind of the evolution of the pass game, where they want to get it to. Anyways, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget, after the game, I'll be back with a wrap up of the Giants Commanders game. And then on Tuesday, film review in the morning, live stream show with Bram Weinstein at 7:30 Eastern time at night. And don't forget, you can check out my son Matthew's college football picks. It's on Empire right now. Does a really good job digging up information, giving you information that's relevant to every big game, makes a pick, has some top 10 picks. Give that a listen or a watch as well. Anyway, thank you for that. Also, let's look ahead now to the Sunday's game, starting with some injury reports. Kendall Fuller, we know that he didn't practice for a couple days this week. Well, he was back and he's fine. He's going to play. He's not even on the injury report for Sunday or the game status for Sunday. Everybody's going to be playing. This is a healthy team relatively, without Derek Forrest, and of course, Jeremy Reeves. Otherwise, they're in pretty good shape as far as health goes. The Giants have a number of question marks, including quarterback Daniel Jones, who was listed as questionable. However, the anticipation is Tyrod Taylor will start at quarterback. We'll see if that plays out. Jones has not been cleared for contact yet with that neck injury. Kind of hard to imagine that he'd be cleared for this Sunday's game. So anticipating Tyrod Taylor. So that's where we're going when we're talking about keys and predictions. That's the guy that I'm looking at. Anyway, so the other thing, couple other things. We did ask about Fedarian Matthews. He's progressing. Right now, there's really nowhere, I don't know who they would cut to put him on the roster. You do have a couple of rookies in KJ Henry and Andre Jones. Jones plays special teams. Would you cut one of those to get him out there? What helps them is John Ridgway's playing well. And when they do that Cinco package, that 5-man front, Ridgway does a good job over the center. And I think that helps them tremendously. Getting F.A. Obata back gives them a guy who can go inside and outside. So that helps as well. So I don't know when Mathis is going to be back, but he's progressing well. I think he's getting close to the point where it's like he could be back. I just don't know what move the corresponding move they would make to get him back. It may take an injury somewhere else to get him back out there. Also, oh boy. Okay. Emmanuel Forbes. Is he going to play this week? Well, I think clearly if Kendall Fuller couldn't play, then Forbes goes back in. This is called a reset, but it wasn't hey, let's sit him for a week. Now everything's going to be okay. It's let's sit him. In their mind, it's let's sit him and then work on what he needs to work on, which is technique. And when you always hear what is exactly technique, because that encompasses so much at the position, but some of it is just how you're lining up across a guy, how your feet are moving at the snap, where you're lining up in relation to your help, your leverage. Based on where you're lined up, where the receivers are lined up, do you have a feel for the route concepts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of that is going on. Yes, this is all stuff they should have and have been working on with him from the beginning. But now that you played him in a game, you learn that he's got to go at a deeper level in terms of his learning to get back out there. So if he plays Sunday, I'm not expecting a big role at all. And it may take someone else getting hurt because you're not putting him in there for Benjamin St. Juste. Kendall Fuller, they really like him. He's very smart as long as his knee is fine. And this is a knee situation that he said he's been dealing with since he entered the NFL. So this is not necessarily new for him, but as you get older, it's a little bit tougher. And then Danny Johnson, they like him as their third corner right now. So I don't know where Forbes is I don't know that he's going to come back in this week. Next week, you got Philly. Are you really going to put him back in there against that group, which really had some success against him in that first meeting? So I think it could be a few weeks, but then it gives him a chance to really kind of work more on the technique. And, I saw him before practice with Benjamin St. Juste and some of the coaches just kind of talking about some stuff, and you'd see him line up and they were talking, and this is before practice where you see him line up, and we're putting up a video of that. It's only about 30 seconds, but you just see what I'm talking about. It's nothing fancy, but it's an educational portion that is taking place with him. And it's, but it's why I think it could be a few more weeks of this, unless there's an injury that puts him back in there. And so anyway, that's it for that part. Let's get now to the keys and then a prediction for Sunday's game against the Giants. The first key, this is obvious, man. Based on the Giants' offensive line situation, you have to dominate up front, right? On defense. This defensive line has got to dominate and control this game. Do not get lulled into thinking that somehow this is a guaranteed win because, oh my gosh, the Giants are so banged up. Yes, they are. Tyrod Taylor is he's a legitimate NFL quarterback. He's a backup for a reason, but he is a legitimate player in this league. He can do some things to damage you, to hurt you. Now, the line is really, really banged up. And that's why I say, if you can't control this front, just hang it up. If you want to be considered one of the best out there, you dominate this front and then this portion of the game. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. If you remember, 2017, this team goes out to Seattle. They're missing 3 starting offensive linemen, including Brandon Sheriff. They have 6 starters who are out. And I think even on the active, they had some guys who were listed as active who you knew couldn't play, but they couldn't keep them all inactive because they had to have a certain amount on the active roster list for that day. So some guys knew they wouldn't play. They went out and beat the 5-2 Seahawks. That was a game where Josh Doxson makes a big play. Kirk Cousins had a couple big throws late in the game. Cousins was sacked 6 times. So Seattle's defense handled that offensive line. But Seattle's defense kept the game close. Washington's defense kept the game close and allowed the offense to make a couple big plays. So dominating the front is an absolute must. It doesn't guarantee a win, but it is a must in this game. And that means you have a left tackle, Justin Pugh, who, as he announced last week in his intros for the Giants game against the Bills, coming from not a college, but straight off the couch. That's their starting left tackle this week. Their starting right tackle, I believe, is, certainly questionable with an injury. And then they have other guys on that line. Their center's out. They put a guard on IR this week. They are banged up. So you need to control this game. And it's not just about not many rushing yards. You've got to make some big plays because of this. And it's stopping the run. And last week they used that Cinco package, the 5-man front, quite a bit. Just as a comparison against the Giants last year in the 2 games combined, they used it a total of 18 times. So it is something that they have used against these guys, and I can see them using it again Sunday. But regardless, you've got to you've got to control it. If you're Chase Young and you're going against Justin Pugh, it's not just enough to get okay, you had a few more pressure wins. You've got to finish this week, period. You've got to finish, because if you don't, when are you going to do it? And I know the Giants are going to do things to counteract, and they know where their line is at. They know what this line can do. So they're going to do things to offset and to help their line. So it's not just going to be, straight drop back every time and, hold the ball for 3 seconds. And here's a couple things to consider. Against Buffalo last week, Tyrod Taylor, his average time in the pocket was 2.26 seconds. That's getting out of there pretty fast. Average time before throwing, 2.6 seconds. Average time to getting sacked, 3.86 seconds. All of those are faster than what the average quarterback would face or have in that, from the pocket, from throwing the ball, and from getting sacked. As a comparison, the average time that it takes Sam Howell to get sacked is 4.6 or 4.79 seconds for Howell, just as a comparison. And so it tells you that, first of all, guys were getting to him fast when they did, but secondly, he's getting rid of the ball pretty quick too. And that's something that was noticeable against Buffalo, and they're moving the pocket. They're going to move the pocket. They're going to throw some play action at them. So they're going to do things to try and counteract and to keep Tyrod Taylor safe. But you still got to dominate up front, period. Sorry. That's just it. They can't let Saquon Barkley go off either. Look at last week. He had, I don't remember the exact yardage total. It was like 93, 94 yards, something like that. 53 came on 2 runs, on back-to-back runs in the fourth quarter. So Buffalo bottled him up all game except for 1 drive in the fourth quarter. That's where the danger of is this game is close. They have a guy that you can bottle up, and then he hits you for 1, right? He hits you for a long one, and then suddenly they're in position to maybe now hurt you. So that's what you have to guard against. But a lot of that then goes back to the offense, because you can dominate the whole game, but Saquon Barkley's pretty good. So he may get a run, and they can, these guys are professional players. And while the line is a mess, they're still professional football players, and they can execute a block and maybe spring it. Now, I will say what I've noticed when he had his big runs against Buffalo, it's something, and it's happened here. Guy gets out of the gap. There he goes. On both those runs, back-to-back runs, there was a guy out of the gap. On the second one, the 34-yard run, you had 1 blocker getting 2 linebackers. Clearly, that's not right. And one of the linebackers had an arm tackle, needs to be over in the gap. You can't have that happen, because if he gets to that second level, you got to watch out now. And you can't allow that kind of a spark to happen, especially early in this game. You've got to, your domination has to start early. You've got to force 3 and outs. You've got to force, punts early to keep an offense that is struggling, keep them feeling a certain way because they can't get anything going. No touchdowns in 3 games. Like, what are you going to do? But if you allow them to do something early, you're going to be in for a fight. And, so you can't, you want to avoid that, but it starts with that domination up front. Linebackers took a step last week, but as a group, very good game. And, Jamin Davis has been playing well all year. Terrific interception, very athletic interception. I don't think people appreciate, I shouldn't say I don't think. I don't know if people appreciate exactly what a good play that was by him last week. To be honest, the throw was pretty good. It was a bad route by the running back. However, what I really liked from Davis on that play is John Robinson gets him off the line just a little bit, but he has athleticism and he cuts it inside. Even if Robinson runs the right route, I think he might be able to get that. And it was such a good athletic play for a big guy. Most of these linebackers are not his size anymore. He's a bigger linebacker anymore. So that was just a terrific play. They're going to throw, you'll have to cover backs there with Barkley or whomever, line it up wide. Do that again. Cody Barton, better game. A lot of it was more decisive gap filling assignments because that Cinco package, he's got to keep playing. He's got to have another good game because they're going to test him with that. And that's going to be something that they have to match what they did last week as a group. And I know, like last week, Khaleke Hudson played. That's a 3 linebacker package, not always available to him. But I think listen, a lot was made of Khaleke Hudson. David Mayo went in there for 2 snaps and played pretty well on both his snaps. That's when you have the depth that did exactly what they should. But starting linebackers, Barton and Davis, need a good game. But starts with dominating up front. Number 2, efficient offense. Take care of the ball. This is going to be for this game. Again, weird things have happened to this team in New York, whether it's something with a punt or a turnover in their own territory. You can't afford that in this game. You just can't. You need to be efficient with it. You need to make sure you're taking care of the ball, and you can't give the struggling offense a short field, period. So that means, we're going to see a lot of stuff from Wink Martindale throwing at Sam Howell. You can't have the negative plays, or you can't have them at all, right? You want to avoid those, of course. And they did a good job of that last week. He took there were sacks, but they weren't the killer interception. And that's what you need this week. So he's going to get sacked, just accept that. I mean, every game he's going to get sacked, but you can't afford the like against Arizona, the turnover for a touchdown, and suddenly a team now has life. You cannot afford that. So, and this D is pretty good at causing problems for young quarterbacks. You have Wink Martindale, their defense coordinator, will send guys from all over. I saw a stunt where the safety's up on the line. He ends up stunning inside with a pressure, and he may have even gotten a sack on them, but it's just something that you don't always see. And I think that's something that they do very well. That's the problem. And they're going to test Sam Howell in this area to see, like, can you confuse him? Can you confuse this offensive line? They've had some problems with some overloads, and whether it's for whatever reason, whoever you want to blame, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. They have a problem there. So they have to make sure that, there are sometimes even like, when you're trying to watch linebackers deciding who's going to, they'll show 7 at times, which linebackers are coming. Well, the one little thing I saw a couple times was the linebacker who's dropping is going to take a peek to the side that he's got to drop too, or the guys that he may be responsible for who might be coming to his area. You saw that a couple times, right? And like, which guy is coming? So you see a guy kind of just peek to the side, like that dude's dropping. Now, can the quarterback is he going to always see that? I don't know. But if you're watching at home, you can probably look for that, right? And I don't know if it happens every time. I didn't watch every play, but a couple times when I saw that. So, but the point is, they're going to bring guys from all over. They'll bring guys from the side. They're really good at creating pressure off of that. And that's something that Howell has to be aware of. So be efficient with that. They have Thibodeau, the pass rusher from their first round pick from last year. Very good player. And so, the one thing with him is a good pass rusher. He's not very good against the run. So if he's in the game and you want to run at him, go ahead, because he's just not very good against run. Where he's effective most as a pass rusher is beating guys to the inside. So when you're Andrew Wiley, one of the things he's had a problem with is getting beat inside. It hasn't been as noticeable at times, or maybe it is to you, but it hasn't been killed them at times because maybe the ball's coming out. But what you have to do, and what you see some tackles do, is you see that left foot starts to open up when he starts getting inside. As soon as that foot opens up, it's like opening a door for this dude to rush the passer. So having Sam Cosmi help out in those situations is going to be key, or whomever, is there even with their back, but it's oftentimes the guard will be able to help with that. But that's something that you just to watch out for. And the pocket, they can collapse the middle with their interior guys, but they're not getting a ton of sacks. So it's more about collapsing. Thibodeau is the one to watch with the sacks, but again, watch him winning to the inside, because that's where he's been a danger. So how else do you run an efficient offense? Well, run the ball. So one of the things that New York is not very good defending the run. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL defending the run. Not every run game is the same, but they're allowing 5.1 yards per carry. That stinks. So run the ball, can be able to control it and finish with points. Buffalo used, now one thing, like, first of all, Giants have a linebacker, Bobby Okereke, who is fantastic. This team actually liked him a lot. And I think they would have pursued him in free agency if his price tag hadn't been around like $13 million a year or so, but he's been really good for them. Buffalo, I felt at times neutralized him with play action passes. Now it almost looked like against Buffalo, they were playing the pass on the way to the run, because they knew where's he going to hurt you. I don't know that they're going to play the same way against these guys. So I think he's going to be a lot more active in that area. But the Bills did a good job of using play action that slowed the rush. Thibodeau in particular, every time they used play action, it seemed like he kind of hesitated on the rush. The RPOs, I felt like, caused the linebackers to hesitate. This team likes to run RPO. So that's something to watch for as well. But again, 5.1 yards per carry. So that's Brian Robinson has to be more patient with these runs. He tends to kind of give away some of the counter runs, some of the delays where you need to have a little bit more patience and you need to stay a little bit more square, a little bit longer to the line of scrimmage. He's kind of turning his shoulders up a little bit too soon, or turning them perpendicular to the line or parallel to the line. And that's causing some problems, or it's allowing the defense to know, okay, this is where the ball is going to go. And then, so with that, one guy who does this very well, I think runs with a lot of good patience, is Chris Rodriguez. Like, you saw that last week on his 13-yard run. To me, it was drawn up. He ran that exactly how you want it to go. It was, be very patient. You set up your blocks. You allow the blocks to materialize. You allow the backside linebacker to kind of get blocked by a lineman coming off. The hole opens up 13 yards, but the patience and the visions that he had, I think it fits what they want to do. So I wouldn't be shocked if he got a few more carries in this game if Brian Robinson isn't going to run with a little bit more patience. And that's something that I think has been a little bit harder for him to get used to, that if the first time you run it, it doesn't go well, then you need to still be patient and not speed things up. You need to take a breath And remember, just be patient on this run, set it up, then go. And I know sometimes it may feel like those lanes get clogged really fast, but sometimes you do yourself a favor by setting it up and then cutting. And that's what I think Rodriguez can help them with if they wanted to give him, again, a couple more carries, because I do think he does a nice job in that area, and he's a tough runner. And then again, pressing the hole. Because that's what it is when you see some of the success that teams have had against the Giants' backs is press the hole, do a nice job, press the hole, get about a yard behind the line, cut. That's where they do it. And so that's what you have to watch for here. Efficient offense, to me, I know I talked about the run second, but it starts with the run, but it really then starts with identifying the pressures and understanding who's coming where, that they could do at any point, anywhere. They're really aggressive on third downs. The receivers then have to beat the man coverage. Jahan Dotson had a 100-yard game against these guys last year. Terry McLaurin has had 3 100-yard games against them. Very good against man. I know the Giants, I like the corner Banks that they have. It's a guy that if these guys had taken him at some point, it would have said, hey, I like that pick. I think he's a good cover guy, kid from Maryland. And so, but Terry McLaurin's pretty damn good. So, Banks has gone up against Metcalf. He's gone up against Diggs. And I think McLaurin is a good challenge, but I think McLaurin can clearly win some of those battles and make some big plays. And same with Dotson. So I think there will be a chance for some big plays with this receiver group and a chance for some yards after the catch to finish those big plays. Anyways, there you go. Now, final one, limit big plays. So if the Giants defense is having a good game, that means Washington's offense may not be running away with this game. This is not a game where you say like, oh, they should just put this one away in the third quarter. I just don't see it that way. I think the Giants defense could have some success against these guys and keep this a much tighter game than I think you're going to be comfortable with. Because could I see it going the other way? Of course. If the defense makes some big plays, short fields, put the Giants in a position where you now can't stay balanced. You've got to drop back and throw. That's when you're going to see, that's when you cannot get away from this pass rush. So that's where you really need to do it, right? To limit those big plays. I think you need to put them in a position where they're one-dimensional, and that starts with defense do something, get some short fields, get some big play, get some points, get ahead by a couple scores, and then force this team to play in a way that I don't think they want to against this defensive front. And so, but again, let's say it's a close game. You've got to limit these big plays, because I think let's look at last year's game up in the Meadowlands, 10-0 Washington. They give up a 50-some yard pass play. And as soon as they hit him, like, you're thinking they're in control. And as soon as they hit that, it's like, oh, this game just changed. You just could feel it sometimes. You just don't want to give them that jolt of confidence that, oh, it's going to be like that, because you guys all know what happens up there. So do they. So that's something you have to be aware of. No touchdown, 3 games. You cannot give them that confidence. And, I think Tyrod Taylor, he's a veteran quarterback who knows how to play the game. Is he a great starter? No, but he's a really good backup. And, I think one of the things, there's some difference between he and Daniel Jones. He's more willing to throw down the field. Last week, he was 2 of 4 on passes of 20 yards or more 20 yards or more. Of course, they're down the field. Both the completions were slot fades to Darius Slayton. So watch for that this week. That slot fade could be a big play. He throws it very well. Slayton's a good catch. Both those throws against Buffalo were contested, and he comes down. He was able to make the catch. So he's going to take some shots down the field. You have quick tosses to Wan'Dale Robinson. You have Jalen Hyatt, a fast guy. He'll definitely take some shots down the field with him. And listen, if I'm them you see the number of big plays allowed by this defense, I'm absolutely going to test him down the field. Test to see, is Percy Butler consistent with where he needs to be? Test to see what the corners are going to do, right? So that's something you absolutely have to expect in this game. I don't know if he's going to be bombs away, but certainly you can expect that Tyrod Taylor will take a few more shots than I think Daniel Jones would. As a comparison, Taylor for his career, when he's a starter, as a starting quarterback, his average 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Daniel Jones, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. The air yards per pass attempt for Tyrod Taylor, 8.8, for Daniel Jones, 7.0. So Taylor will be a little bit more aggressive, and you've got to contain him in that pocket because I think he's a little bit more. Daniel Jones is a very good athlete, and obviously we all know how much he's fooled these guys on zone reads. I don't know that Taylor will. I'm sure if I'm them, I'm going to try it. But I also think where he's a little bit going to be a little bit more elusive in that pocket. And again, they will move him. They will get some half rollouts to one side to get away from a rush, maybe overload the blocking over here and go away from like a one-on-one situation with Pugh and Chase Young, something like that. So that's something, but that's how they can do it. And you can create those big plays. Darren Waller, a very good tight end. That's a guy that's he's a very good tight end when he's healthy. And right now he's on the field. So that you got to watch out for him. So, I think obviously the D should play well, but you cannot let them get these plays. And we go back to the discipline of the rush. You're going to get out of your gap sometimes. We know that every team does, but you got to be able to consistently maintain that, get some push, really make Taylor uncomfortable right away. Now, they have the guys to do it, obviously, but you need to do that. And, Chase Young has been very close. I think I've given you the stats, 16 pass rush wins the last 2 weeks combined. That's the most in the NFL. You got to finish. This is a week you have to finish. This isn't about like, oh, you had 4 more pressures. No, you got to come away and say, hey, you had 2 sacks, right? You've got to finish, create a big play off of that. And look for Tyrod Taylor will run. He's averaged 5.9 runs per game when he's a starter. Daniel Jones, 5.6 runs as a starter. Anyway, the whole point of this, I think it's going to be a tough game. The last 6 games that these teams have played, 5 have been decided by 1 score or less. 4 by, I think it's between 0 and 3 points because, of course, the 1 tie. 1 double-digit win, and it was the 22-7 game. It was the last game of the year, that the mess at the Meadowlands. It was where it was basically the last game was a Judge, and that was it, right? So, that was a double-digit win. But otherwise, the other 5 games always come down to the end. We know what happened last year. Guess what? That John Hussey, his crew, the crew that called the penalty on McLaurin and didn't call the PI against Curtis Samuel, his crew is doing this game. So, I'm sure that I know this team has talked to the league and just making sure like, hey, this guy really his crew wasn't great at the end of that game. And I think Washington, Rivera is like 1-5 with that crew. So can't let it get in your head. But the point is, these games are always close. And I'm just kind of bracing you guys for that one again. I think if they can go up there and win by double digits, that's a terrific win, but just come away with get another win and get a second win in a row, get into the Philly week with some momentum and then go from there. But so prediction time, I'm going to go 20-17 Washington. I can see it being a 20-10 type game. My fear is a turnover that gives them a short field that leads to easy points, something like that. No turnovers, 20-10 Washington. But I'm just kind of bracing for one of those, whether it's a fumble, interception, whatever it is. I'm just kind of bracing for that. But I think this is a good challenge for these guys. I mean, Sam Howell playing against this, I think we're going to get a really good feel for his continued progression. And I think this is why this season is interesting because of his progression as a quarterback. But this is the kind of game where it's like, you're going to get another test. It's not just, you've played now you started 7 games. You've seen everything. Hell no. This is the first time he's going against this defense and this coordinator who loves to really kind of throw a lot at you and really test young quarterbacks. So good test for them. Have to come away with it. Listen, they have to win this game. Like if you want to start doing anything, if you want to get in any sort of a run to gain momentum, to get into position for a playoff spot with a brutal second half of the schedule. The Giants have had a brutal schedule to open the season. Go look at their games. It's brutal. Haven't always played well. We know that, but they're 1-5, but they've lost to some really, really good teams and should have beaten Buffalo. So anyway, that's it for me. Stay tuned for a minute for my short interview, about 5 or 6 minutes with Terry McLaurin. And again, I'll be back after the game with a wrap up of the Commanders Giants. They need to win this game, get 2 in a row, head into Philly, and then who knows what happens. So I'll talk to you next time. Do you feel like you guys are starting to get into a little bit more of a rhythm with Sam? Like the last 3 games, you've gotten some good yak. You're getting a lot more targets and all that. Do you feel like that?
I think it's definitely a work in progress with Sam. I think on the little throwback play that we had where he kind of back shouldered me. That was kind of something where we were really anticipating that being an over-the-top throw, but it's like me and him saw the same thing at the same time.
And the 18-yarder?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was coming back around that way.
Yeah. I actually like that.
Yeah. So it was something that we've had in the bag for a while, and EB finally got the play up and called, and we saw A.J. Terrell kind of hanging over, so obviously I don't want to run to get covered, so we kind of felt like the sweet spot. And I think that's like the nuances when you're getting...
Is that a sign of growth?
Yeah, I think that is a sign of growth. I think it's something, like I said, we didn't necessarily anticipate or talk about, but it was something where the receiver and the quarterback were on the same page, so it came out to be a really good play. There's other plays that come across the game that we're continuing trying to clear up, more so when there's like leverages. So if a guy's in trail, where is he expecting us to come out? Where is he going to throw the ball? But I think little plays, when he hit Curtis in the first third down of the game, where Curtis kind of essentially has like a corner route, but he throttled in the zone and Sam stopped him with the ball. I think those are the little details that you see.
So he was supposed to have a corner route on that one.
Yeah, so he's running, it's called like a Seattle, so it's essentially like a corner route. It ends up being like a corner route. Against man, he maybe flatten it off, but against zone like they had, he's technically could take it high through the deep defender and the flat defender, but since they were kind of converging on it, he kind of slowed down, and not only that, Sam stopped him with the throw.
Yeah.
So I think those are little details where you can tell Sam's getting really comfortable with the offense and the certain looks that we're getting. So we're definitely getting more on the same page with that.
Absolutely. The Yak hasn't been, as a group, now you're getting it the last couple of years, it hasn't been what it was. I think people expected.
Right.
Is that part of it? I know against Philly it was, and you had it last week, but is that part of the getting used to that, or what else is going? Is it style of routes? I mean, I'm looking at everything. It's
definitely
hard to.
I think it's style of routes. I think it's the kind of coverage that you're getting each and every week. I think we were getting a lot of more man on third down, so it really allowed us to run away from guys a lot more and get some catch and run opportunities. Last week.
Oh, last week.
Yeah.
But
I think we're getting. We've seen a lot of zone, one high zone, and so I believe. We ran like a quick game, and it was like a 5-yard route, but I got like 9 yards on it. I think that's on the receivers. You got to learn to call it, catch and knife instead of trying to dance around, trying to make a guy miss. Because you catch and let the quarterback throw you. So if the ball's on this shoulder, he's telling me the free space is over there, so I need to turn this way. A lot of times we may turn around trying to square the guy up, and that's just letting defense converge. So I think we're also doing a better job of breaking tackles. And again, I think that's on us as ball carriers.
Why is it important to get you guys more and even more involved? I mean, and it's funny because you haven't had that big game yet.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, is that important to have, or is it how, you know what I mean? Or do people make too much of it, like, the receiver?
Definitely.
I mean, it's a good group still. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely. I think it's a balance because, we got a lot of guys who demand the ball. You know what I mean? I know it's not just myself, but at the same time, you want to be the guy who's counted on to go out there and get 8 to 10 plus targets a game and really be able to take over the game, be someone they have to account for, because then I think that allows other guys to get favorable matchups. And I think we kind of saw that over the course of the game a little bit, but it's just when you kind of start stalling a little bit, you kind of are just trying to get back on track. You're not in the full rhythm of the game anymore like we were in the first half. And I think on us as an offense, we got to figure out how to sustain that rhythm throughout the game.
On that 118-yarder, did you see it? Like, when do you know you both see it? Like, do you look at each other at the line?
Yeah. Well, I think it honestly it's even more cool that you get on the same page, because that's something that happened in the midst of the play.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, the backside guy's job is to take his eyes away from me so I can sneak under and get out the back door. And eventually he's a ball player. Like, he's going to get a feel for, like, okay, something else is coming around. So I can tell my eyes were on him when I was coming through. Okay. And when I came back out the backside, I knew he was about to come over the top. So I feel like my body language, and I've always talked about that as a receiver, your body language has to be clean for a quarterback. Because if I'm sprinting, Sam doesn't. He's like, I see it, but does he see it? So now he's clutching the ball versus, like, I'm running full speed coming out the back door, and then my eyes and my body's kind of slowing down. I don't completely stop, but I'm slowing down, telling them, like, I feel the zone back shoulder me. So I think that was a really cool example of us executing that. And again, with him and Curtis, like, Curtis knows he can get hit in that hole, or he can win out by the numbers. But I think Sam stopping him with the ball. Curtis's demeanor, like he wasn't sprinting through the zone. He was kind of throttling down.
So
it's definitely like I really put a lot of the onus on us because I think the quarterback most times sees those zones, but it's hard to tell what your receivers are going to do if they're not definitive with their body language.
Because if you're not on the same page, and it's like a delay against like with Jahan in Chicago, there's a one route where it almost looks like he's waiting to see how's he reading that, and then when you read it, now it's late.
Exactly. Okay. And then honestly, that's the nuances of everything. Like him and I on one of the early routes against Okuda, he was in the trail and he threw it more flat. He had pressure, but in certain instances we got to talk about, okay, if you see a DB behind me, where do you see that angle of me coming out? Is it over the top? And most times we see it the same, but I think that's the importance of communicating.
Yeah. You and Jeff had some battles. You had that 1/3 down. It's like you guys were locked pretty hard.
No, for sure. It's fun though.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's like, you guys seem like you get along. You guys are pretty tight, aren't you?
Yeah, me and him are pretty cool, and he's somebody that I kind of always saw as like a younger brother figure, and it's good to see him healthy and making plays.
Well.
He is
that's a good group.
It is.
I don't think people realize how good that defense is. Good.
They are. So, with Bates back there, Bates is super smart. They didn't really give up a lot of big plays. I think we hit the plays that we needed to hit. But as far as like down the field shots, that's on us. We got to be able to come down with more contested opportunities. But we got two long corners and a safety that has range. It makes it tough to be able to make those plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No problem always.